Most people don't think about these countries when they think about Europe.
During the Cold War, they were barely on the map for Western travelers. Too complicated, too closed, or simply unknown. But today, that's exactly what makes them so fascinating. We're talking about the 4 countries that once made up Yugoslavia and their neighbor, Albania.
From Bosnia's bridges to Albania's bunkers. From the walled city of Dubrovnik to the green parks of Belgrade. What we discovered here changed how we see Europe.
And maybe how you will too. I'm Judy.
And I'm Kevin. Welcome back to Finding Gina Marie, where we share our lives as full-time travelers and the connections we make along the way.
Here are Croatia, Montenegro, Serbia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Albania. 5 countries rewriting what we thought we knew about Europe. The Balkans stretch far beyond the 5 we visited, but this is our glimpse into a region that's often overlooked.
We're going to talk about all of these countries, but we're going to break it down to 8 different sections to clarify just what we think about every aspect of them.
What I expected maybe was for these countries to all be a little bit cold and to have cold architecture as well.
Communist era stuff.
Yes. Yeah. In some ways, it delivered on those things. But I would say overall, they were all much warmer experiences than we expected to have. For instance, Belgrade was this mix of concrete buildings, but then also really stunning architecture like you would expect when you are visiting Europe. There were a lot of green spaces. I was surprised to see families playing sports together. There were sports fields everywhere. And overall, it felt welcoming.
Tirana also had the sports fields and the parks and a lot of family gathering outside. Unfortunately, it didn't deliver on the architecture. And there was a bit of like a wall between us and the people. So it didn't feel as warm at first until we spent a little time there.
Yeah, I felt like once we learned more about the history, we had a better understanding of the place. And that made a big difference for us.
Now, if you want to talk about stunning, let's talk about Mostar.
Yes, let's do that. First of all, it's a very small place, very intimate. We stayed a week, which was more than most people would stay. It's often a place people go for a day trip. But that was really nice for us to really sink our teeth into it. It's got a beautiful old town. Its bridge was pretty as a postcard. When we got there, I had to pinch myself for how beautiful it was.
Yeah, and the river, the water is gorgeous, and there's always little boats going down it. So you can take some beautiful photography and a lot of restaurants that overhang that. So the visuals, right away, you feel like, wow, I landed in a really good place.
Kotor, Montenegro was drop dead stunning. It's where mountains meet the sea, so you really can't go wrong there. Plus, there's a beautiful, but small, old town. So super picturesque.
We stayed in Dubrovnik, which I really thought was a great spot.
Yeah, it felt a little less touristy, but at the same time, you still got all of the beauty.
Great people, great friendly atmosphere.
Agreed. So what did you think about Dubrovnik?
I thought it was a stunning place, and I also thought it was really expensive. Not a place you would stay for a month, but man, the visuals there, there's a lot we talked about in our video about that you really need to watch because there's so much to discover and look at.
I mean, we did have our problems there, but my first reaction was this is one of the most spectacular places we've ever seen.
And as far as all these countries, all these cities we've been to, they all felt extremely safe. Like no part of the town that we're in any of those countries did we feel like, oh, we shouldn't be here or this doesn't feel right. No problems at all. Really loved that part of the experience.
I mean, you're still in major cities, so I would just keep an eye on your belongings and everything else. Like I would tell somebody to do anywhere, but I felt very safe.
Oh yeah, I didn't feel like I would get pickpocketed as much as I would in Rome or Paris, someplace
for
really
sure.
Packed tight. Yeah.
For sure. So for section 2, we want to talk about what the biggest surprises were that we found when we visited.
Yeah, speaking of Dubrovnik, the biggest surprise I had was being attacked by thousands of birds. Not attacked, but the food they wanted was really close to my feet, so I felt a little bit crowded out.
Now, Serbia was a place where we had an experience that most people wouldn't have there.
Yeah, it's called surgery. I had a hernia, and that was a place we were going to stay for a month, so we figured, let's get it done now. There's going to be a recovery time. That was a Great experience, actually, and there's a lot to love about that city.
Yeah, their private healthcare system was really top-notch. We had a great experience there.
Sometimes we get the timing just right, which happened in KOTOR. We hit there for Boca Night, which has fireworks and this boat parade where the kids were involved, they were decorating boats, and they had judges that were giving them prizes for best type of boat and best unique this and best unique that. It was a night where everybody was out, and I mean everybody.
We were very glad that day that we did not have to go back into the walled city for our accommodations, because I don't know how long you would have had to wait before you could get in there.
Yeah, look, you see our video, the main gate is stuck. Nobody's moving it.
In Sarajevo, I really enjoyed taking a tour with a former veteran and having the opportunity to see this tunnel of hope. What he had to say was just so touching and really meant a lot to me to hear.
Yeah, it's not often you get firsthand information about wars and what happened. And he definitely had firsthand information.
On this checkpoint, they can do with you what they want to do. They can kill you, they can hit you, they can rubbish you. Many people disappear here. Nobody knows what happened with them.
One of the things that was most interesting to me about Tirana was visiting the House of Leaves.
Now, that was hard because I didn't realize there was a more communist country than Russia. So getting this information, finding out how everybody was eavesdropped on, you couldn't trust anybody. What a way to live. Honestly, when you learn stuff like that, it helps you understand the people so much more.
Completely agree. Once we realized that people learned or were taught to keep their mouths closed and not to share too much information, it really helped us to understand the people way better.
Something I never thought I'd see is people risking their lives to jump off a bridge. The old bridge in Mostar.
No, they were trained.
Okay, they were trained. There's still danger in it.
For sure. And the water was freezing cold.
We touched on this a little bit, but in section 3, we're going to talk about what the people were like in all these places.
Now, we only see this very small section of people during any amount of time that we're in a country. You can't judge an entire country or even a city by the 100 people you come in contact with.
One neighborhood, one set of restaurants, one area. Yeah, we try to be very careful about how we talk about a place.
Right. And we did feel that in Tirana, people seemed guarded.
Right.
But once we were there for an entire month, we could slowly watch how people lightened up and became more friendly to us. And that was really nice to see.
Yeah, and you could tell there was a lot of community there because they were always gathering in coffee shops.
Oh my gosh.
Just, they were always, it's like every shop, every place you'd serve drinks of any kind, there was always a group there. And they're always chatting. So they weren't non-friendly people.
But it's also interesting that you talk about that because in Tirana was a cafe culture.
Right.
And we kind of came across the coffee culture in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Mm-hmm. So when we were in Mostar and Sarajevo, we learned about how important coffee is to the community.
Yeah, especially in Mostar. They're very specific about the coffee shops. In fact, we normally go to a coffee shop to get cappuccino and some pastries. And they're like, no. Bosnian coffee and conversation. Maybe a cigarette. Maybe a pack of cigarettes.
We didn't have that.
We didn't have that. But it's all about the community. It's all about gathering. We even had a lesson about how to make Bosnian coffee.
I think overall we found people in Serbia to be pretty friendly as well.
Yeah, all the medical people were really friendly to me. Honestly, though, they were incredibly kind, incredibly professional, and had nice conversations with us. It was one of the best medical experiences I've ever had, and that comes down to the people being just that interested in making us feel comfortable. Now, KOTOR was a place we met up with a lot of people, and Mike, one of our friends there, introduced us to Askan, who was generous enough to share a toast of rakia with us.
Yeah, he was such a great, welcoming guy. And then someone else came in and invited us to go check out
the hotel restaurant.
Yeah, it was quite good. And I don't know, it was just a place where it was very easy to make connections with locals and very heartwarming to do too.
Yeah.
But then there was the guy in Tirana who saw that we were trying to find the mosaics that were supposed to be there.
They were running around lost, and he could tell.
And he just, like, out of the kindness of his heart, just led us there. We had this great conversation. He showed us around, and then he agreed to have some coffee with us, and that was really special.
We had a lovely conversation, and we almost spoke Italian.
We were able to somehow or other communicate, even though he was not an English-speaking man. I think kindness permeates any kind of language barriers.
Definitely.
There is so much history in this part of the world. So in section 4, we want to talk about how some of the history impacted us.
Yeah, especially like Mostar. I didn't realize when we saw this beautiful bridge in this beautiful area that bridge was destroyed. And learning about the history of it and learning how hard they had to work to meticulously put it back together in its original form, and how much they worked at this, and just the amount of suffering that this town went through. I felt like when I left there, I had a whole new respect for how much people can endure and how strong they can be. And Sarajevo with the roses, you see those on the streets, they're markers where 3 or more people were killed. And you look at them and say, wouldn't you want to hide all this? But no, they still want to pay respect and say our history is with us. It's damaged us. And we felt so much in these cities that learned to live through this troubled time.
Yeah, I definitely felt that they were making beauty out of tragic events. And I really appreciated that mindset from these Bosnian and Herzegovina people.
Everyone there was willing to step up and tell us something and give us a story. And every time we heard a story or saw a bullet hole in a wall, this whole area of the world, I think I was moved more than any other area of the world we've been in.
I feel like there have been other places, but I definitely felt the impact of the history here. Probably because the war was 1991 to 1995 when we were alive.
Yeah.
And
I think that's why it hit me even harder. You know, these are recent trips.
we were adults.
Yeah, we were adults raising kids. So yeah, it definitely felt like we're learning recent history from the people that lived it.
Yeah, exactly.
In section 5, we want to touch on tourism, because whenever you're going to a place, that's your biggest battle usually. The prices will be higher because of tourism, or the crowds will be heavier, or you're just going to end up not doing the thing you want to do just because of all that.
In terms of places that didn't really feel over-touristed at all, I would say those would be Belgrade and Tirana. It felt very local.
Definitely. And I think that Sarajevo had its local aspects, but Old Town got a little more crowded, a little more touristy. The difference is their Old Town has shops that have been around since the 1600s. So it's not like they took an old town and suddenly plugged all these shops in. Some of the areas have had metal and copper shops that date all the way back. So it felt even more authentic for an area full of shops.
And for all 3 of those, I would say that the crowds were very manageable.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially if you contrast that to Kotor and Dubrovnik.
Yeah, Mostar.
Yes.
Because whenever you have one place in a place that's very touristy, like the bridge in Mostar, that got really crowded. So you had to really watch when you walked across that.
All 3 of those places either had day trippers, which was Mostar, that came in by bus,
Right.
or the other 2 places both had crowds coming in from cruise ships.
But you can manage the crowds. If you know when the cruise ships are docking and people are coming, you can say, well, we'll go do our things in the morning and then late afternoon and skip all that. So there's ways to get around. If you've ever been to the Balkans, we'd love to hear what your favorite place is and why. Let us know in the comments.
So in section 6, let's talk about how easy it is to get around. We'll focus on mobility and also public transportation.
Now, Belgrade and Dubrovnik had a lot of stairs, and some of those stairs were very vertical. So you didn't want to be carrying suitcases or anything heavy with you. And if you had any mobility problems, you had to kind of stick to the flat and straight parts of those towns.
Yeah, and I felt like Kotor's Old Town had very slippery stairs. But when we were in Dubrovnik, that was much better. There were stairs, but they weren't slippery. But because so much of the landscape has housing built into it, there's no getting around those hills and the stairs.
And Mostar, the actual streets in the old town were made of these round stones.
Cobblestones. Oh, well, yeah. Yeah, round stones. I'll give you that.
Thanks. I did step on them. In fact, they had a technique where you had to tiptoe on these to get across them the most easy way. Because as you're walking, even if you had cushioned shoes, you could feel them.
It was an interesting contrast because in Dubrovnik, they were very shiny, but they weren't slippery. But here, they were shiny and slippery. What?
They weren't at all alike, though.
I didn't say.
Tiles.
I know.
Well,
they were shiny. They're both shiny. I'm telling it like it is.
I don't know if you are.
I am.
Now, every place has a bus system. Not all of them are easy to use. Belgrade had a really good bus system that got us to the hospital and back many times. Unfortunately, buying tickets there was a little tricky.
Yes, you were supposed to be able to get them at kiosks, but none of the kiosks we went to actually supplied them. So we eventually got them, but it was not easy.
And talk about not easy. The taxis in KOTOR were really tricky. I think getting one to stop was one problem. And if you found the stations where they actually gave you taxis, like you could go near the cruise ship, they were charging ridiculous prices for these taxis.
And sometimes they didn't even want to go to the places that you needed to go. And so sorry, we don't deliver people there.
Yeah.
How? I've never heard of something like that before. So that caught us a bit off guard.
Thankfully, Judy's good with WhatsApp, so she got a hold of a taxi company that way.
And as far as getting up the hills, there were cable car systems in Dubrovnik, KOTOR, and Sarajevo.
All right, section 7. Let's talk about costs.
We're also going to talk about whether or not these are places that you want to spend an extended amount of time in. So let's start with Tirana. For nightly lodging, we paid $29, and food was $17 per person per day. In Sarajevo, $38 per night, with food costs of $13 per person per day. Belgrade, $39 for lodging and $15 for food. Mostar was $43 for lodging and $21 for food. A combined cost for KOTOR and Dubrovnik was $104 per night for lodging and $50 for food. And for Dubrovnik, $79 for lodging, and for food, upwards of $50 per day. And that's only because I was sick, so we did not eat as much as we would normally do.
So let's talk about how long we would stay in these places, given how much some of them cost and just the size of the place. Like Mostar. I really loved being there, but it's not a big place.
Yeah, you would get tired of it to live there permanently or to have a long stay there, in my opinion.
Yeah. And the old town for Dubrovnik was pretty small and really expensive.
Yeah, definitely. I think there are other parts of Croatia that would be worth a longer stay, but Dubrovnik isn't one of them. In fact, I even think that the 2 weeks that we were there worked out because I was sick, but overall, I wouldn't probably spend more than 4 days there.
Yeah, that's not the place you want to get sick at the prices you're paying for lodging and food.
But I definitely felt that Belgrade and Tirana and Sarajevo were all three places that you could settle in for a month or 3 months and be really comfortable.
Yeah, because you have options. You have places you can go that are less expensive, more local restaurants. You can have choices. If you're in a very touristy area and it's really hard to get out of that touristy area, now you're stuck with limited options. So.
And all three had a very local feel, so you don't necessarily feel like you're a tourist there.
Exactly. Okay, our final section, section 8, we're going to give our thoughts about each of these areas and what's our favorite.
For me, it was Sarajevo. I was really touched by the history there, the people. I felt very connected to so much of it. I also thought it was a really nice size, so it wasn't too small, but it wasn't too big. You could walk to wherever you wanted to go, and that felt really good.
Yeah, you're right. That was a really nice city to get around. There was options for more touristy areas if we wanted to go there.
Yeah, we were only there for 3 weeks, and honestly, I could have been there for a lot longer. There were things that I wanted to see that we missed.
Yeah, now I really liked Dubrovnik. Yeah, I probably wouldn't have liked it as much if we went with our early plans, which were staying in Kotar Old Town for the whole time. Then I probably would have had a different feeling. It would have felt more like Dubrovnik. But because we were outside the city, we had this casual, easy lifestyle. And frankly, we met up with so many people there that it felt like we were kind of hanging out with friends the whole time.
Yeah, in terms of places that I maybe wouldn't go back to, I would maybe say Mostar, but only because it's small and I felt like I saw as much of it as I needed to. But I would still go back to Bosnia and Herzegovina and explore more of that country.
Right.
And for all of those countries, I felt the same way. I might not go back to Dubrovnik, but I definitely want to explore more of Croatia.
Right, there's a beautiful coastline. There's a lot to explore. And I think you should go to Mostar. I think there's a lot of important stuff to see there, but you only need a handful of days, and then you're good to go.
There's definitely more of Albania and Belgrade, both, that we want to explore, especially since you had your surgery and that kind of stymied some of the exploration we wanted to have there.
I wasn't quite the walker after the surgery. I was more of a limper.
That's true.
Now, we have videos for all these places, but we just released the Dubrovnik video, and you can watch it here.
Thanks so much for watching. The best compliment you can give to us is to recommend our videos to your friends and family.
And remember to
Wander more,
worry less.
and bring a passport.
Until next time.
Until next time.